Hello and welcome to The Game Changers. I'm Sue Anstis, and this is the podcast where you'll hear from trailblazing women in sport who are literally knocking down barriers to challenge the status quo for women and girls across society. A huge thank you to our new partners, Sport England, who are kindly supporting the next 3 series of The Game Changers through the National Lottery. My guest today is Shruti Sajani. Recognised as one of sports industry's next-gen leaders in 2021, Shruti is currently City Programme Manager at the ECB, a role which sees her focused on empowering more women from South Asian backgrounds to play cricket at all levels. As part of the ECB's South Asian Action Plan, Shruti directs a national engagement programme, a team who are recruiting 2,000 women into voluntary activator roles through the Dream Big Desi Women project. These women then lead the drive to get more young people into entry-level cricket through programmes such as All Stars, Cricket and Dynamos. Shruti, I really want to share the fact that your face just lights up when you talk about cricket. You clearly really do love it. So where did that passion begin for you?
Thanks, Sue, for having me. And cricket has always been a part of my life. It's allowed me to bond with my parents and my brothers. And it's also been a sport that I've played from a young age. So I've absolutely loved it. And I also got to skip school to go watch a cricket game. But more than anything, it was the friendships that I gained and the bond that I had with my brothers that really found my love for cricket.
So was it very much accepted that you could play in the way that your brothers played too at home?
Yes, so my dad and my brothers were fully supportive, although I do think my brothers made me bowl for a lot longer than they ever bowled at me. But yeah, no, they fully supportive, but I think it was wider where people were like, why are you doing cricket? But my brothers and my dad always had my back in terms of following my dreams and following the sport that I love so much.
And you talk about your brothers and your dad. Was your mum a fan of cricket? Did you watch cricket as a family?
Yes, we did. We used to go touring across England and Wales. We used to travel. I remember going to watch a World Cup final in 2011 with my mum and dad. So
wow,
we loved it. We used to do the face paints. We used to take food to the stadiums. I remember taking samosas and sandwiches. It was literally the best thing ever because it's a whole day. I used to get my whistles and horns and we used to have the best time ever.
That's lovely. It's lovely to hear. And did you say you played? So what level did you play to? And were there other girls playing at the time?
So at the time, I represented under 11s, under 13s at Leicestershire County Cricket. When I was training initially, I was the only girl at the local cricket club, which was hard at the time. But again, my brother came with me to the sessions and we used to go together. So that was a lot of fun. But I remember it did feel awkward at times. It did feel that there was no one like me there. But luckily I had the support of the coach who was a female and she really supported my journey into cricket and trialling for Leicestershire County Cricket at the time.
And can you give us an idea of how important cricket is in South Asian culture generally?
We absolutely love it. It's just so much. I remember when I shouted to my extended family that I got a job in cricket and every single person was so happy for me. It's a way that connects us to our origins and back home. And it's just a lot of fun and a lot of competitiveness. Everywhere I go, everyone I speak to, there is something that draws them to cricket. Occasionally, lots of times the food, but also the game. So it's that bringing people together.
That's lovely to hear. And how did you find your way to the ECB?
I graduated in 2012 and I remember I created a vision board because I wanted sports to be more accessible for women like me. And on that vision board at the time, I put a photo of Parminder Nagra from Bend It Like Beckham. And I put a quote saying, one day I will change sports for women like me. And then at the time when I graduated, there wasn't anything available. So I left sport and I followed a management and a graduate scheme. And then 8 years on in 2019, I saw this advert. It was on BBC Asia Network and it said, the England and Wales Cricket Board are looking to inspire role models of the next generation. And it's in the biggest year of cricket, the World Cup, as well as the Ashes. And I sat in the car, I pulled over and I was just like, oh my God, this is my dream. And I remember running into the house and I was literally just spent the next couple of hours completing my application. And then here I am 3 years on.
That's fantastic to hear. And what did you study at university? You studied sports management?
Yes, so I studied sports science and management.
Excellent. So how fantastic to hear that there wasn't a role at the time, but eventually came to find you that amazing role.
This is why I tell everyone, follow your dreams and you definitely can achieve that if I can. I'm sure you can too.
But can you tell us a bit more about Dream Big with Desi Women campaign?
Yeah, definitely. So Dream Big Desi Women started in 2019. It set out with an ambition to inspire 2,000 role models, 2,000 South Asian women into volunteering roles through All Stars and Dynamos Cricket. And what we know, or at the time in 2019, what we knew was that South Asian women are least likely to be active or get involved in sports or even volunteer. And if they were going to take part, family would be the biggest way in. So we had a great proposition through All Stars in 2019, which has now evolved to Dynamos Cricket as well. And we cover 7 cities up and down England and Wales. And we decided to use All Stars Cricket and Dynamos Cricket and take it to non-traditional settings. So including gurdwaras, mosques, leisure centres, community centres, anywhere where you think cricket can't be played. And it's been a journey and a half. So it's just been incredible to see the amount of women who've stepped up, who've taken part, be it for their children, be it for their nieces, nephews, and basically step up to be role models for that next generation and inspire as many people to pick up bat and ball.
It targets women of South Asian descent. So can you tell me a bit more about those women in England and Wales today? So who they are, where they are, and I guess the reality behind perhaps some of the stereotypes we might have.
We basically target Indian, Pakistani, Bangladeshi, Sri Lankan. And these women are, they're a whole range. So our youngest activator is 14, our eldest is 69. And it's just amazing to see the whole mix of women that are getting involved. Some are students, some are full-time workers, some are part-time, and some are just grandparents who want to just inspire their granddaughter to pick up a bat and ball. And what we've done is at every stage of this Dream Big project, we've put the women at the heart of everything we've done. So Dream Big actually came from feedback we've had from the women. So they told us they wanted something that was inspirational, aspirational. And we basically built this in partnership with the women that we'd engaged in year one in 2019. And we've taken their feedback on board from looking at what is the appropriate kit we could provide them for them taking part in sports, what's the appropriate timing for training sessions to take place, because we know in the South Asian community or culture, family plays a heavy weighting. So we know that there's a lot of expectations around women being at home, looking after the family, or having a job in like accountancy, doctors, lawyers. So doing cricket or volunteering cricket was never on the top of the agenda. So we've made cricket a part of that agenda. We've made cricket a welcoming space where you gain more than just cricket skills. So we've trained over 200 mental health first aiders who are now giving back to the community. From the pool of volunteers, 6 of them have now full-time jobs in cricket, which is amazing to see. So hopefully this is a splash in the ocean where we're changing the world a little bit.
Absolutely. And you mentioned that perhaps these women haven't been volunteering in the past in their communities. Is that because they're just so busy with family life and working life, or is that just the nature of that community?
There's a lot of pre-commitments or commitments that they have before volunteering, like it's family commitments or looking after extended family or priorities on education and work. So there's a number of challenges to break down. And to overcome that, we've really looked at making the programme flexible and accessible. And so currently we're just shy of 1,600 women out of that 2,000, which is amazing. And
excellent.
94% of them have found this as their first volunteering opportunity.
Oh, wow.
The best thing as well is that we're currently at around 20% who've volunteered in our programme who've then gone on to volunteer in the community, being a COVID vaccinator or a COVID marshal at vaccination centres, or even just creating food banks and providing to the community. So we've seen this as a first catalyst of them giving back to the community.
That's brilliant to hear, isn't it? And how much of those barriers in the past to women playing and volunteering cricket stem from how they're perceived by family and the community? And obviously you had a very supportive family in that way, but how different is that in other families?
I think it's different. I think it's very difficult when you don't see someone like you at that elite level or in that elite role, or it's really difficult. And I think when there's so many challenges on that journey, sometimes it's better to give up or not pursue that journey, because you see there's too many barriers you've got to overcome. And that's why we've really, through Dream Big, what we've tried to do, and even the broader South Asian Action Plan, is we've taken cricket to them. We haven't expected any of these women or family members to come to us. We've taken cricket to them, and we've made it a warm and welcoming environment so they can take part. And along the journey, I've seen a number of women who face challenges as well getting involved. So like one story that sticks out, there's a female who really wanted to volunteer and take part, but she hadn't ever worn Western clothes. And this was the first time through our program that she's going to wear Western clothes. And she's so proud of it. And her 5-year-old son was like, oh my God, my mum's a coach. And every time someone visited their house, the son would go and get the kit and she'd be like, no, hide it away because I don't know what they're going to say. And he was like, no, mum, I'm proud of you. And he kept doing that on multiple occasions. And then she saw the mindset change, not only from her husband, but then her extended family. And when you want to inspire groups or individuals who have challenges, it's about not just them, it's about their relationships, like their extended family, their friends. How do you inspire everyone on that journey? And we've taken a great step around also inspiring that family on this journey with us, because everyone's welcome.
And is that changing, do you think? And I guess looking at the kind of younger men and next generation coming through, are their attitudes to women participating and playing sport changing?
I think it is. I think you look at the generation coming through at the moment, like you look at TikTok, Instagram, there's a lot more stories that are being shared. There's a lot more openness, and there's a lot more men allies who are stepping up, who are supporting women in sport. So I definitely think it's changing. I think at the top level, there needs to be continued exposure, as we're seeing with the major tournaments that are coming up. So fingers crossed, if we can continue the momentum, continue talking to them in a way that they listen. So through the TikToks, Instagram and so forth, I think we'll genuinely make a change.
And you obviously need to create a safe space, I imagine, for these women so they feel confident in participating. So how hard has that been for you? What have been the challenges there?
It has been difficult, because I think it's, how do you get someone who's never volunteered or looked after a group of 30 children to come and run a session for 30 children who are running around, hit the ball everywhere? And what we've done is we've provided like the mentorship and buddy system, so they feel they've got that shoulder to lean on, or to someone to provide support. What we also do is we do taster sessions before they go into the curriculum of the 8 weeks, so they can get a feel of what the expectation is.
And you mentioned clothing there. I love that story, but how much of a barrier has that been, and what have you put in place for the women taking part in terms of their outfits? And can they play in whatever they want to play in?
Yes, so clothing was the biggest barrier.
Yeah.
If you look at a sports kit in general, they're very fitted, they're tight, and I knew that if we wanted to target, especially the audiences we're going after, we need to make change. And that was one of the key things that, as an organisation, ECB changed. Like within the first 3 months, we made an order around appropriate headscarves, longer T-shirts, skins to wear on the T-shirts and not exposing any arms, as well as looser jogging bottoms. Don't get me wrong, it didn't all land well at first because we had to make a few edits, but that was the best bit because we got feedback to tailor the clothing that suited them the best way.
Excellent. That's so good to hear. I know there's been changes recently, but Badminton England have changed some of their rules around modest clothing, and it's good to see people following suit and other changes being made there. You talked about the really innovative things you've done in terms of the venues that you've gone to, but I'm assuming it's not all smooth sailing and not everyone's opened their doors to you. So how have you dealt with any negativity you have found perhaps in making those approaches?
So prior to coming into cricket, I used to work in sales, and I know, I guess the stats are for you'll get a 9 no's out of 10 before you get that 1 yes. So I've definitely tried to instill that into my team, and we've had a lot of no's. We've had a lot of centres who popped up but haven't worked, and it has been tough because I don't think these centres have ever presumed they could do cricket because no one has ever approached them in that way. So I think when we set out, we knew research data, everything was against us. Everything said that these group of women won't take part. But what we did initially is we sat down as a team and we all wrote our whys down and our purposes down as to why we wanted to be a part of this project. And every time we had a setback, we would remind ourselves of why we're here. And we always draw back to that why.
And how much of it for this program's success is around the sport itself, and how much of it is just kind of making those connections and creating that community, would you say?
I would say a lot is on making connections and community, because people like to feel a part of groups, people like to feel a part of something. And cricket's just the vehicle for us at the moment, but us creating the stakeholder relationships, bringing ECB in presence of these community members is huge, because often it seems when initiatives like these come around, it's often seen like a tick box or a reactive measure due to something that's happened. But we've stuck around, we've built amazing relationships, and I'm excited to see what the future holds.
And how does it fit with the ECB's bigger South Asian Action Plan?
So we stranded off the ECB South Asian Action Plan, so the 11-point action plan, and that's where the Dream Big and the 2000 South Asian Female Volunteer Project came from.
As one of the strands of the 11, you say, or the... So
it's an extended part of the 11 as we join in. One of the key things that we're looking at is how do we join, urban delivery and South Asian delivery together. So watch this space. I'm pretty sure some exciting things will be coming.
I wish I'd known. I could have asked you that. Could have broken the news here on the podcast, couldn't we? I love the fact that you're encouraging mothers and daughters to play together too. So can you tell me about the results that you've seen there in families?
When we did some research around looking at what inspired young girls, but also the activators in our programme, who made you dream big, often mum had been the key number one influencer. So we really wanted to bond that relationship and continue that. And we see that come through in every session. It's so great to see, because a lot of girls are like, oh my God, my mum's playing cricket. My mum never used to throw a ball. And they just see their mums in a whole different light. So that's been phenomenal. Like mums and daughter sessions at the mosques that we do is amazing, because what they do is they'll often do the education or their prayers, and then they'll go to cricket. And it's just a great and fun add-on that these women get to do. And I see in mine and my mum's story, like I get to bring my mum to like all the sessions that I volunteer at, but I've never seen my mum in that light because she's never done volunteering. But now she goes without me and she helps out and runs these sessions, and it's just so inspiring.
I'm really lucky to talk to women like Ebony Rainford-Brent and Rim Latkar as previous guests on the podcast, and they both highlighted the challenge for South Asian women in terms of that pathway to progress into elite cricket. So how important do you think it is for us to see South Asian women playing at that elite level?
I think it's so important, because when you see women like you, you're more inclined to do it. And I think as we have All Stars and Dynamos and we create that pool at the participation level and the recreational game, I think and hopefully that will filter into that talent pathway as we join up the dots and make it, I guess, cricket even more accessible. But absolutely essential to see those role models at the elite game.
And does it frustrate you now that there aren't those role models there as you look at the England team?
I wouldn't say frustrate. I would say that there's a lot of work that's probably happening at the moment that's behind the scenes. I see there's a lot of time, there's a lot of effort going into making cricket accessible. But from an outside in, I understand why there would be frustrations. But I think being involved in cricket and being a part of this Dream Big project and other aspects of the organisation, I can definitely see the efforts and strides that are being made. So hopefully in the near future, we'll see that change come through, because it's not an overnight fix.
That's a model answer. That's perfect. The ECB media team will be very happy. That's a brilliant answer. And what do you personally think is more important? It might not be either or, but in terms of driving participation, especially amongst South Asian girls, is it those elite role models, or is it, as you've mentioned, the community, your mum and your other kind of women in the community playing, do you think?
Initially at the participation projects at All Stars and Dynamos, it's really that localised role model. So community coaches, whether it's the mums or older sisters, I think at that level, it's really that group of individuals. And then when they aspire, once they've graduated from the Dynamos programme and they start understanding they've got choices in life, from education choices to what they actually want to dream to be and do, that's where that elite comes in. Because if they're exposed to it, they can dream it and be it and see it. And that's what's important. I think to my story, I think I saw, although it was male cricketers, I saw them having fun on the pitch, and that's where I aspired to. So I think if we can replicate that for young girls, we'll hopefully be that pathway.
And it might be a naive question, my asking, but we've almost categorised kind of Desi women as this group of women. But are they very different in terms of background and approach, in terms of, you've mentioned whether it's from an Indian background, Pakistani, etc. I guess that there's language differences, there's faith centre differences, but is the approach very similar, or does that need to be tailored too?
It's very similar. I think it's being curious, wanting to know more. And I think throughout this project in 3 years, like I've gone into a Gurdwara for the first time as I was going into a mosque for the first time. And I think being open and being honest with why you're there, what you're trying to do for the community is crucial. But in general, what the ethos of the program around being welcoming, accessible has stayed throughout. So again, by keeping them fundamental values at the heart of everything we've done has really helped us, I guess, overcome a lot of barriers.
Yeah, it's just interesting to, I guess, know from the outside coming into as well. Softball cricket's become really popular with women too. And it's interesting, isn't it? It's only really in researching you that I've learnt about tape cricket. I didn't really know about tape cricket. So in terms of that traditional cricket that we know so much about, have you had any pushback? Do you get pushback from that community as you bring in these kind of new formats, especially softball for the women to play?
There's not been that much pushback because I think, for example, what I've learned through engaging the women we have through Dream Big is they just want a place to play and they don't want the red tape of the rules and the history and like where rules come from or passing the line if it's a no ball. And they just want the flexibility. So I think there's different audiences and I think some people will follow it as a full passion, but I think the women that we're engaging, it's more for fun. And I think by keeping fun at the heart of it makes it work. But I think if you look at clubs, they're also providing different offers because I think it brings in more people to your club. And again, it's just making it inclusive and accessible. So today, I've not seen many issues. We've seen some transition into foundation level 2, level 3, performance coaches. We've seen a young Dynamos girl who's been selected for the county age group under 11. So again, it depends on their aspirations and where they want to go in cricket. But so far, it's been really accessible and inclusive.
And what would you say to those cricket traditionalists who feel, we hear it on the radio, don't we, that Test cricket is the be-all and end-all of cricket?
I guess as the world changes and as there's more representation across different groups and different motivations as why people take part in cricket, cricket has to be relevant to these different communities. Yes, there's a whole audience who love Test cricket, but there's also a whole new audience who love the 100. So we've got to accept the different formats, the different ways. The biggest thing is, are we seeing people pick up a bat and ball? And if we are, we should be happy.
Excellent. And clearly, the world of cricket was rocked recently with the revelations from Azeem Rafiq at Yorkshire. How did that news unfolding impact you personally?
I think it sets you back a bit where you look and you think, wow, you take a moment to just, I guess, take the news in. And it definitely was a difficult time, especially as the organisation you work for has been challenged, been scrutinised for previous actions. So it was tough during that time for me, my team, both personally and professionally. And I think to the earlier point around, we know things are in place and I think things will now be accelerated as we change the game. And I think I have hope that this will continue and we'll continue to see the change that we all want to see, not only in cricket, I think across sports we'll see sport be more reflective, which I'm privileged and excited to be in a position where I can bring change as well.
And we know historically the management of cricket in England and Wales and elsewhere has been quite male, very male, and white too. So do you feel you've been accepted in the sport as a South Asian woman? So it's really interesting because when I started, I looked around and I was like, whoa, there's no one like me. But I also prior to me coming to cricket, I worked in automotive industry. And in the automotive industry, it's very male dominated as well. So I think being a minority from university to all the careers and jobs that I've done, I think you kind of accept your surroundings. But what I think cricket has allowed me to do is have a voice and challenge. Being able to speak up and challenge has been my greatest strength across these past 3 years. And the best thing is they've listened, which is the most important thing. Yeah, that's all you could ask for, really, isn't it? And do you see enough women of colour in executive roles across cricket, either in the UK or globally? So for me personally, I think it's varied. I think it's few and far between. But I do see that there's interventions that are now in place to hopefully provide that pathway or that career progression for, especially across England and Wales. So fingers crossed as we see the game, hopefully from participation change, hope from the administration side, we'll see the change as well. Excellent. That was my next question. Could you see yourself as a senior executive in cricket in the future?
Fingers crossed, hopefully.
And I've been lucky enough to meet some of your remarkable team, and they all seem so positive about you as a manager. So what's your approach to managing and motivating?
For me, it's all about putting people first and putting people at the heart of it. I think when you have a team that are happy and content in their job, they will deliver. I'm not about, I guess, drilling in KPIs and targets, because I believe that's a byproduct of a happy team. As I mentioned, one of the first activities I did with the team was, why are you here? And always I remember that, because that's their purpose. So we're a purpose-led team. We want to make a difference. And if there's a problem, we're in it together and we overcome it together.
You've clearly learnt so much across this project, and you've been really generous in sharing those findings with others in sport. And I know your session for the Women's Sport Collective was hugely popular. So if you had to pick a couple of recommendations for other sports that they could take and use, what would they be, do you think?
So number one would be, take your sport to the community so they can partake. Secondly, it would be, hear what the community have to say. What do they want? Don't overkill it with all the rules and all the regs that sports often comes with. And then the last one is, try and make the process for them taking part as easy as possible. So don't, in your first session, provide them with all the paperwork to sign up, give their life details.
Right.
And also don't just send them a link to sign up, because they won't do that. So try ensure that whatever your point of access or entry point is for them to get involved is easy as possible. And whether that's you pull them together for a coffee morning and you talk about what your sport has to offer, what your community has to offer, it will be far more easier for them to get engaged and get involved.
What are the biggest learnings that you've had? Are there things that you've gone down a path and thought, actually, that hasn't worked and we need to reassess?
Yeah, definitely. So the entry point around capturing data and getting involvement, I thought, hey, look, all we got to do is a Microsoft form and they'll be on their way. And all my days was I right, but we pivoted our way. So we did, as I mentioned, the coffee mornings, and we printed out the surveys just so we could capture these stories and the individual journeys. The other thing is that I assumed that doing a national marketing campaign would be all hunky-dory, right? Having Dream Big everywhere would be the perfect thing. But no, having it localized, going to the community. I know I'm all for sustainability and stuff, but even that one poster went a longer way than a national marketing approach. And then lastly is, like, I remember in Leicester in 2019, we set up 9 new centres in various locations across Leicester. We had all the volunteers to go, the kit was ready, but we had no children. Like, no one signed up to it. And I was like, oh my God.
I forgot that bit, yeah.
I was like, oh no, where do we get the children from? And I remember sitting in the sports hall in the middle of the floor, and I was just like looking at my colleague Shilly at the time. I was like, wow, I thought the children would just come. I thought we just needed to get the women involved. And I was like, oh no. So I think what we learned from that was, wherever we place the centres or the locations, it's not just about popping up a cricket centre. It's about ensuring that it's accessible for the children. And we've learned that the women as well as children will travel a certain distance to the location. So in some places you'll see multiple locations in like I guess a geographic region of like 3 miles, but that's because different demographics will go into the location. So that was definitely good learning. And I think it's also just getting out to the community and doing events away from, I guess, cricket in this instance. So we did a lot of community events around Diwali, Eid, Vaisakhi. We do a lot of work with universities around their sports comps. So we did everything and anything where cricket wasn't. And some events didn't work. We fell flat on our face, but some were phenomenal as well.
Oh, that's so important, isn't it? That's accepting failure and learning from that. And is it boys and girls? What's the kind of split in terms of those coming through in All Stars and Dynamos? And I guess how different has having women as activators made that? Are you getting more girls than you would have anticipated?
Yeah, definitely. So we're open to boys and girls, but the motivations around building on that mother-daughter relationship. We've kept a lot around mum and daughter sessions or women and girls. And we've definitely seen a huge uplift in inner city around girls taking part in All Stars and Dynamos, which is phenomenal because they've got the female role models and coaches. However, in some locations, we are still open to mixed boys and girls. And it's just so nice to see the boys when they get told by a female activator, nope, it's not how you do it, or this is what you're doing. It's just so much fun because that young child doesn't differentiate. They do listen, they do respect, and they give that confidence to whoever the activator is.
It's wonderful to hear, isn't it? And finally, what happens next for Shruti? Is your heart firmly set in cricket forever, or will we see you driving inclusivity across other sports in the future?
I definitely want to drive inclusivity across other sports. Firsthand, from my lived experience, seeing the power sport players, I want to spread that as far as possible. Cricket's always close to my heart because of the memories I've created with my family. So yeah, I think definitely watch this space. I think I'm really excited to just make a change wherever I can.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for being a guest.
Thank you.
As always, it was such a pleasure to talk to Shruti and learn more about her powerful work. If you'd like to hear about other women driving change across sport, do visit fearlesswomen.co.uk, where there are details of all my guests from this and the previous 8 series. You can also listen to all the podcasts on the website and find out about the Women's Sport Collective, a network for all women working in sport. You can sign up for Changing the Game, our free weekly newsletter, which highlights the developments in women's sport. And there's more about my book, Game On, The Unstoppable Rise of Women's Sport, also available in all good bookshops. Thanks once again to Sport England for backing the Game Changers through the National Lottery, and to Sam Walker, who does a brilliant job as our executive producer, along with Rory Alskery on sound production. Finally, thanks to my brilliant colleague Kate Hannon, who does so much behind the scenes at Fearless Women. Do come and say hello on social media, where you'll find me on Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram and Facebook at Sue Anstis. The Game Changers. Fearless Women in Sport.